Born on November 12, 1957, she lived on the 19th floor at Wellesley Street, a life that she fulfilled with love, family, and a strong sense of community. Vickie Rennie was a woman of her kind who gave all of her energy and passion to the St. James community, giving seniors support, love, and warmth. She loved her community passionately and wanted persistently to help with some of the struggles that seniors face because of food insecurity, isolation, and loneliness.
She was a good listener, and she always encouraged seniors to ask for what they needed. She knew, she did a lot of surveys. She did a lot of one-on-one. And one of the big things Vickie did was she recognized that she didn't want to just give away things to seniors and they don't take part in anything. All of her network was based on feedback that she got from the seniors and the residents themselves. What is it that they needed? What were they lacking? What did they need help with? So she listened, and then she managed to put together programs that helped to serve what those needs were.
I met Vickie pretty well at the beginning of the work that we were doing at the corner, and again, that's probably way back in about 2005 and 6. She attended one of our meetings that we hosted at the Wellesley Community Centre when we were giving feedback to the St. Jamestown residents about what they told us about what they wanted to see happen from the corner in the very early stages of its development. And she told me later that she attended the meeting because she was initially prepared to speak out against it, but after participating in that meeting, she decided to become involved. And so Vickie was on the steering committee of the community corner from the get-go until her death in July of 2020.
I first met Vickie in 2016, January of 2016. I shall never forget it. I was looking to do some volunteer work in the community, and through volunteertoronto.org, I saw a listing for really a community kitchen that was serving seniors, and the ad was to look for help in kitchen preparation and things like that. That was what I was interested in doing. So I reached out to her, and I met with her the day after. I emailed her. She got back to me right away, and I went and met her at 200 Wellesley, which is where Vickie has lived for, 48, 50 years. And she's just one of a kind. As soon as you met her, you just knew she was special. We hit it off right away. What I thought would maybe be a 20-minute meeting was about an hour and a half. And we just really got to know each other super, super fast. She had just lost her mom, I guess about 6 months before I met her. And we were talking about it because my parents were ailing, and they both suffered from Alzheimer's, and that's how her mom passed. So we just had a really strong connection. She was very, very easy to talk to, and she was very spirited, and she just became a huge part of my life. I'm so happy that I saw that ad.
Vickie hosted turkey dinners in holiday times, and one of the things that stories that she used to tell is that she somehow corralled, the chefs at the Royal York Hotel to cook the turkeys for her, and she would enlist people to be able to collect these, probably about 20 turkeys. I don't know how she did it, but it was just an amazing energy that she had. During this period of time, was also the sole support of her mother, who was also ill. I mean, she just was an amazing person.
I first met Vickie, I don't even remember how many years ago it was, through a very good friend, another St. Jamestown stalwart, Everett Colrin, who has since passed away. And he would go to pick up the turkeys from the Royal York Hotel that Vickie would serve to the seniors. And so he asked me to help him. And Everett didn't get around all that easily and had a bad heart. He was a very high-strung individual. So I figured, well, if I don't help him, he's going to have a heart attack in the Royal York Hotel, and that wouldn't be good. So I went and helped him. We went into the kitchen and picked up the turkeys and brought them back. And that kind of introduced me to Vickie and her group down in the basement of 200 Wellesley. And when Vickie got a hold of you, you were kind of a lifer. She kind of grabbed hold of you and never let you go. And so I ended up going on her board. I did her tax returns for her 1 year. I just, whatever she needed. And I became the turkey guy for many years. I ended up going for turkeys. I'd take them on a Monday frozen and pick them up on a Thursday. I used to say that my car smelled like turkey air freshener because the fresh cooked turkeys from the Royal York tasted or smelled amazing. They tasted amazing too.
Rennie succeeded to use her own struggles as fuel to solve her community problems. She could use her pain of losing her mother to help other seniors in the community. She overcame loneliness by being a part of a huge family, by making everyone in her community a part of this family. Vickie didn't only want to do volunteer work or to fill the gap of food insecurity for the seniors, she wanted to bring people together for their own community. Vickie was a planner and organizer extraordinaire who loved her community passionately. In 1992, she started the Bleecker Wellesley Activity Network to provide meals and general support to the seniors. In 2007, Vickie became a founding member of the St. Jamestown Community Corner.
She was very persistent, and again, her priorities were people with disabilities, the residents of St. Jamestown, and in particular seniors. That's most of the programming that she did were seniors. We're focused on seniors, and I think you didn't want to be on the wrong side of an argument with Vickie, so I think it was her sheer force of personality in some respects that it was my way or the highway in some ways. So you had to, if you wanted something done in St. Jamestown or in the corner, you really had to engage with Vickie because she had a lot of energy, and she had a lot of passion for what she believed in.
During the fire in 2010 at 200 Wellesley, a needs assessment was done after the fire, and it was found that there were thousands of seniors in those 19 high-rise buildings that were isolated, lonely, homebound, and really without much services at all. Vickie started her network in 1992, known as the Bleecker Wellesley Activity Network. And she had volunteers and was receiving donations, and she supported many seniors during that time of the fire. I heard that she literally ran to the WCC and pulled out sheets and blankets from the cots there in order to keep the seniors warm, especially those that were on their wheelchairs and were waiting for transportation to take them to a safer place. We have our Seniors Day program at the corner. And Vickie's mom used to come to our program. She was so angelic.
Compounds the issues of isolation for seniors, being able to, and food security. So income, food security, being, if you have health problems and you're a senior and you're alone, how do you get access to the very basic things that we take for granted every day? How do you get access to groceries, to food, cleaning services, personal support care when you are maybe discharged from hospital, or if you've never been in hospital but you have some mobility issues.
There are a lot of grassroots, other community seniors there as well from different cultures, like the Tamil seniors, we have the Filipino seniors, we have South Asian seniors, and we try really hard to bring them all together so that nobody is left behind.
I think the food is an obvious one. The meals, the produce that she would provide them to help supplement their budget. For me, the one that was and is so prevalent was loneliness. And so many seniors in St. Jamestown and elsewhere are in those towers, and it can be such an incredibly lonely existence. A lot of times their family isn't around, or they might see them once a week or once a month. Or she brought, once a month, 70, 80 people, 90 people together for a party, and they talked to each other and they met with each other. And you would go down there and the same people sat at the same tables all the time. It became a family for them. And, the social need was so incredibly important. And those outings, where they would go on a trip, go to this museum or go to that place, how important that was, because they were treated with dignity, they were treated like human beings. And, I think of this last 11 months, almost a year of COVID, and how the uh, isolation and loneliness has magnified. So, Vickie was able to keep it going during those first months of COVID, and after her passing, others have kept it going. So important that meals are being taken to seniors' apartments, and the extra food. It's not the same, though, as the fellowship. That's why when people are vaccinated and we can get back out there, it's going to be so important to reestablish those gatherings. I think they were doing a little bit more outside in the nicer weather to bring people together, but yeah, so critical. And Vickie had a little office, and she would bring seniors down and let them use the internet so they could connect with their family. A lot of them don't have an internet connection. A lot of them don't know how to navigate Zoom and all the technologies now. So, that personal connection, that personal touch that we're all missing, so very critical when you're isolated, when you're on your own, and when you're a senior who just doesn't have mobility, or someone with a disability that doesn't have the mobility to get around. So very important. And that was, as much as the food nourished the body, I think those gatherings nourished the soul and the spirit. And that was just as important, and perhaps ultimately will be more important for people. And that was the big one, the big need. And if they, doing their nails and their hair, that's to help people with their feelings of self-esteem, and the trips, and keeping their minds sharp, and having bingo and having workshops, and, doing yoga for their physical health. All these things just were strengthening seniors, and what's the word I'm looking for? Building their resiliency. Yeah, that's a good word. Just helping them to cope with all the challenges that they face.
This is a very diverse neighborhood. There's so many different cultures. One of the amazing things I remember her doing was we were talking about, when we were menu planning, because we would do that months and months ahead, is just organizing the meals. And we wanted to make sure that it wasn't always, one sort of cuisine, because we respected the fact that there were so many different cultures. And so one of the things she did, I actually have a copy of it here, she put together this multicultural cookbook. And this was just her own doing, like wanting to celebrate all the different seniors that were in the program. And if you go through it, like, honestly, so it's each resident, she asked each resident to provide their own family recipe and give a little history of what the food was or why they liked it. And she did it for like all of the 80 or so residents and got all their pictures. And then she put this book together. And like I said, like there's Helen and her Polish stuffed cabbage. And then there's a payapa salad recipe. There's a Jamaican recipe, a South Asian recipe, British steak recipe. It's just Biryani Sri Lankan Tamil mushroom recipe. This book is amazing. I've actually cooked quite a bit out of it, but this is what I'm saying. Like, she just knew how to celebrate people and their cultures and their stories. And she loved a good story. And she listened and she delivered. Typically what would happen is a meal would be served at 1 o'clock, but we would open the doors at 12. There'd be 2 or 3 days of prep work that would go in behind all the meals that were done. Vickie always tended to everybody's palate, in the sense that if it was a beef-based meal, but you couldn't eat beef, there was always chicken or something else, or there was vegetarian, vegan meals for those who weren't. So we always made sure, there was all all those meals were done. But she would just have this event and open the doors at 12, and the residents would come in and they would chat for about, a half an hour and have a coffee while we're finishing up the prep. We did most of the stuff in slow cookers, to be honest. Vickie did a lot of stuff in her own house for prepping sometimes. But so we would get the meal all ready, and then Vickie would kind of, stand in front of them with 3 pages of notes, and everybody would have to be super quiet while Vickie addressed the crowd, and so she would spend 2 or 3 minutes. The very first thing she did was, this would not be possible without the volunteers. And she would have them, every single time, everybody had to clap for the volunteers. And then she would go into the upcoming things that were going to be part of the network, in the program. If you'd like to go to the zoo, you can sign up on this board over here. Or if you want to be part of, one of the things that she did was a self-defense course. If you want to sign up for our self-defense course, do it over here. It's tax filing time. You need to get me the information by this, that, and the other. She would do all the announcements. And then she would talk about things that maybe weren't right with the program. She was always coming down on people. You said you would call, you didn't, you said you were coming. If you can't come, don't tell me that you're coming, and then don't show up, because then all that food has gone to waste and you've wasted our money. And so she was very no nonsense. She would kind of address the crowd with the goods and the bads of the program. And then she would say, well, today's meal is this, and I hope you really enjoy it. And then we'd have this terrific meal. And she always had the tables dressed up, with tablecloths, and she'd always like to do these little crafty desserts. She just made it special, and she encouraged everyone to talk, and she hated when people would dash and run. She said, the whole point of being here is not just to have a meal, it's to talk to each other and get to know each other. When COVID hit, I was really worried about her, because she already, I'd say she was, her autoimmune system was compromised for sure. I was terrified for her. I wanted her, to be honest, I was trying to convince her, maybe you just take a break, maybe just take a break. And she said, are you kidding? They need me more now than ever, so that's just the way. That's the way she was. She was selfless, completely selfless. She rallied. She immediately changed to a delivery program. I don't even know if she missed a meal, to be honest. I think she just changed it so that, okay, we're going to start doing door to door. She made the phone call. She said, you be here at this time. This is the meal that we're doing. And she changed to a delivery. I know she spoke to a lot of local suppliers that she worked with, because she had a lot of relationships to help get food delivered, because it was harder for her to go out and get it. So she had people coming and bringing her the food to bring into her pantry to then prepare it. So she did, I guess, so Vickie passed away in July. She was in hospital in early July. So she would have dealt with COVID for about 3 or 4 months in actively making sure that needs were met. It didn't scare her. She was going to get it done, and she did.
Her organization was a little bit kind of on the back of a napkin a lot of the time, but it worked. And one of the things we've done since she passed is really try and put some structures in place so the work will continue, because no one has the force of personality that Vickie had. And so we want to make sure that it won't be the same without her there, but that the work that she does, the important work, will continue. She was providing produce. She'd be shopping around for the best prices, and she'd be over at No Frills or over at Food Basics, loading up shopping carts and wheeling them back over to St. Jamestown to get the groceries that she needed for her beloved seniors. And if you'd ever go to one of those luncheons, it was amazing. She would be down there, people were cooking and carving and volunteers, and she'd be having birthdays, and she'd be doing all of these things, and she'd be screaming at the top of her lungs at the folks in the room and trying to get their attention, and she'd be lecturing them like a mother hen, and but she loved them all. And she'd do her, every year they'd have a seniors forum, and then she'd do these other events, seniors trips, and again, just all because of her energy and her force of personality, and with bad health herself.
She was a straight shooter. She was a very sensitive person, but also was lively and humorous. And she really got what she wanted. And we're going to miss her for that.
The only way, I think, the only words that I can use to describe Vickie is that she was a force. And she had a number of disabilities and a number of issues, health issues. She was often seen on her scooter. That's how she got around St. Jamestown. And so I always used to can imagine her. When I think about her now, I think about her as kind of whizzing down Bleecker, across Wellesley, and sometimes I'd see her on the Danforth. She was everywhere, often with her dogs. But she was always, Vickie was absolutely dedicated and absolutely passionate about issues in St. Jamestown. And as a long-standing resident in St. Jamestown, her first and foremost, I think, priorities were really to her community in St. Jamestown, and particularly to seniors in St. Jamestown. To start the corner, and it was very difficult in terms of the design and how we were going to get it launched. So money was an issue, but she absolutely was adamant that we could not, open the corner without it being accessible for people with physical disabilities. And we were, it's kind of one of those things that when you're pressed for a lot of time, money, resources, you're always thinking, well, let's address that later. And I think she knew absolutely that you cannot, this is later will never come, for people with disabilities. You have to, now is what is important. So she was a huge advocate for seniors and for people with disabilities. And she contributed a lot to making sure that those voices were heard at the table in St. Jamestown and at the corner for the whole time that she was here.
Her building, 200 Wellesley, she lived there a very long time. And towards the end of her life, she was in something of a battle with TCHC. They wanted her to move out of her apartment, and Vickie took nothing lying down. So she was fighting that battle until she passed, and involving Councillor McConnell and others in her fight. But I think she started out because of some of the challenges in her building, drugs and violence and things like that. And over time, it kind of just evolved into feeding seniors. Of course, her mom was with her for many years, and then her mom finally passed, Kay, not that long ago. So in looking after her mom and others, and it was her and Kay that actually did this together for many years, they decided to start feeding seniors and others who have had challenges, mobility issues and other things like that. And again, by force of nature, she would go around to local merchants and get the food. She made this arrangement with the Royal York to cook the turkeys. And the program just kind of developed. She got funding through some government programming. She would work with the MP's office. She would work with the councillor, the MPP. She worked with Bill Graham and George Smitherman and Pam McConnell, and in later years others that came along, and nobody said no to Vickie. She showed up at your door and you just sort of said, yes, ma'am, and off you went. She did it really, again, by the force of her will and her character. Her organization was a little bit kind of on the back of a napkin a lot of the time, but it worked. And one of the things we've done since she passed is really try and put some structures in place so the work will continue, because no one has the force of personality that Vickie had.
But there were always problems. Vickie seemed to have lots of problems around her. She liked chaos. She really did. She kind of thrived on it. If there was a problem, she loved to get in there and handle that problem. She was not afraid of anything. There were some things like fundraising. I remember one year she didn't get her grant, and she was devastated. She could not believe it. She was just like, I just don't understand. She worked tirelessly on her grant applications. She had lots of people involved in helping her refine them and making sure she knew how to stretch every penny out of the budgets that she would get. And for whatever reason, this one year, she did not get it. And it really only took a couple of phone calls. She was very well connected politically. She had a good history. People knew that she was doing well in the community. And sometimes I think at government levels, and someone's putting a stamp of approval on something and they don't know how impactful a program might be, it can get, you can get cut off, and you're not guaranteed. These are government grants. The money's going to flow and ebb and flow as it goes. But I can tell you, it took only a few phone calls, and some pretty big names just stepped right in and made sure that funding got done, because they knew the influence and the profound impact that her programs had on those residents. So she did it with lots of friends and people and colleagues, but she was just a fighter. So she just didn't take no for an answer. That was simple as that. No no's.
She always just worked and worked and worked and stretched that money. She was a great budgeter, and oh, we have enough money, we can do this month, or we have enough money that we could do that. And if she needed more, she would, she did some GoFundMe campaigns and other things to try and help out with some of these causes. But yeah, never did it on a big fat budget. I mean, there are charities out there that are multi-million-dollar organizations, and that was never Vickie.
She just taught me to be a better person, and I just want to make her proud. I just want to continue to make her proud. So I'm working with lots of the other long-term volunteers that worked with Vickie to help continue BWAN and continue continue running her program.
She was a sister. I loved her dearly. I miss her. Yeah, I grieve her still. Just was an honor to know her, to meet her, to get caught up in that whirlwind that was Vickie Rennie.
On behalf of the Service Provider Network and the Older Adult Consortium, really like to honor Vickie. She will always be in our hearts forever. She opened her arms and invited seniors to her holiday meals, her summer barbecues, the Valentine's Day. Every year she had something so special for the seniors, and her bi-monthly luncheons. These events will not be the same without Vickie. But we have to continue her great work, and her legacy will remain very strong in St. James.
Please do not forget to like, comment, and share to our channel. Follow us on all our social media platforms. And for more information, please check out our website.